Good morning, everyone. I'm Vice Chair Colleen Whitlow, and I'll be taking over until Jeff gets here this morning. I'd like to call the Regional Transportation Committee meeting in order for Tuesday, August 19th at 8:30. With that, do we have any public comment, Cam?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Give it a moment to see if we have raised in person or online. That is not the case. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the July 15th, 2025 Regional Transportation Summary. Are there any questions, comments from the group? Seeing none, I imagine, and we'll move on to the discussion items first. And we'll have the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan update, our solicitation process by Alvin Vidal Sanchez, our Regional Transportation Planning Program Manager. Thanks for starting us off today, Alvin.
No problem, Chair. Happy to. Good morning, everyone. I'll be providing an update on an upcoming process that we are going to be undertaking here at DRCOG related to our 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. So just getting the word out on our upcoming call for projects, what that's going to look like, how long it's going to run, what we'll be looking for in this upcoming call. So I'll start with our foundation. We have all been doing a lot of great planning work in the region over the last number of years. And so ultimately, we're looking at all of that planning work as a starter. Where are our priorities coming from? What are the needs we've established in our various plans at the various levels from our federal partners, state partners, regional and local partners? In addition to all this planning work, there's also a couple just new products that we have here at the agency that we'll be capturing in our regional transportation plan. So as we get into our call for projects, ideally we're all leaning on these visions we've established in our various plans across the agencies. When it comes to the regional transportation plan, we express investment a number of different ways. The first one on this slide are what we call programs. You might also hear us say allocations, buckets, I forgot the third word I'm supposed to use right there, but something that simply captures, we're not going to list every sidewalk project over the next 30 years, but we know they're going to occur. And so we show that as a large grouping of funding in the regional transportation plan. These programs, as we call them, typically cover maintenance, preservation, rehabilitation, technology, transit service. We know buses will run out to 2050, but we're not going to show every bus route in our regional transportation plan. And then, like I'd mentioned, sidewalks and bicycle facilities are some of those same topics. So we show them in the plan. You can find them in our regional transportation plan, but you're going to see those as just groupings of dollars in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars spread throughout the region. We also have projects in the plan, which folk are often the most excited about. Those are specific line items in our regional transportation plan. You can go to our project list, go to our spreadsheets, and you'll see a specific project from X to Y. It's doing A, it's going to cost C. We expect it to be done by D. And so we show that information in a spreadsheet form, a project database. We have our web map. If you can find a row on a spreadsheet, a line on a map, these are those specific projects that we're talking about. There are a few that we have to include in our planning process. Roadway widenings of 1 centerline mile or more on our regional roadway system, new interchanges or changes to an interchange that add or delete a movement, so a new ramp, removing a ramp, and new rapid transit lines, so light rail, commuter rail, bus rapid transit, anything that's a fixed guideway component. It does not include what we call local roads. Here at the agency, when we say local roads, we're talking about roads not on our regional roadway system. We recently did just adopt a new regional roadway system for this plan update, so that is what we're talking about when we're discussing on our regional roadway network. In addition to those top two that you're seeing on your screen, roadway capacity, rapid transit capacity that I just touched on the previous slide, last update, we did broaden the types of projects we were looking to include in the adopted RTP as specific projects. So we now do include safety complete streets projects, active transportation projects, freight projects, and then what we've been calling corridor planning. Some generalized concepts. We know we want improvement on this corridor by 2050. We're just not sure what that might be yet. And so instead of locking in a particular project at the beginning of a plan process, we show some investment on it and allow the planning process to identify what the vision and goal for that corridor might be. And so we are looking at, in this next call for project, continuing this broad project type mix, asking for our forums, our regional partners to submit projects that run the gamut from these project types and allow us to evaluate and ultimately include a broader mix of projects in the adopted plan. We already have a lot of projects in our adopted RTP, so I'm going to run through what we plan on doing with those that are already in our adopted plan. First are those that we don't need to include. So if a project will be done this year, we don't need to include it in our regional transportation plan. It'll be outside the life of our RTP, so it'll run from 2026 to 2050. And any projects that are complete this year or have been completed since our last plan update will just fall into a baseline condition for us. There are projects we're proposing that we automatically include in the next RTP, or automatically include in the next in the call for projects where we're not having our project sponsors submit for them. So those are projects that are under construction or in the NEPA phase or have construction or NEPA funding in our transportation improvement program. So we don't want to stop that project, cause any worry amongst project sponsors about whether that project will continue to be in the RTP. And so we are proposing these be automatically included in the next RTP. After conversations with our project sponsors, are these still priorities? Are these details correct? We need to update anything. If any of the particular details might change significantly, we might ask for that to be a resubmittal if we think the scope of that project has evolved beyond the original goal. And then finally, there are the projects that can be resubmitted for evaluation. So those are projects that might be planning for what we're calling pre-NEPA studies. So a vision study, a corridor study, a planning environmental linkage study. There are other projects in the plan. Maybe they exist out to 2040, 2050, haven't had any work done yet because they are so far out. Those can be resubmitted for evaluation and ultimately inclusion in the adopted plan. And then in addition to the side of the RTP that deals with what we call regional funding, DRCOG, CDOT, RTD funding, we also have locally funded projects. And so those are projects that are being handled by local agencies in some form. Sales tax, bonds, developers are handling the project for you potentially. Those can also be submitted during the call for projects to be evaluated and included in the regional transportation plan. Getting into the framework that we're looking at for the next couple of months, I'll be focusing on the priorities and evaluation piece for this conversation. But as you look at this slide, there's a larger process that's being undertaken. Staff are capturing the financial resources that are available throughout the region out to 2050. The 3C partner agencies, DRCOG, CDOT, RTD, will be combining that. Those financial resources with the evaluation process to create a draft list of investments that will go before our committees and the board later this year. But I'll be focusing on how we're looking to identify priorities and how we'll be evaluating those submittals in the next few months. Starting with identifying priorities, we're proposing a two-track system that we had developed last time for the update to the RTP, recognizing each of the different roles our agencies play in the region. So the two-track process includes what we're calling interagency priorities. So submittals from the three regional partners, DRCOG, CDOT, and RTD, submittals that are focused on the interstate system, U.S. state highway system, or rapid transit projects. Then a concurrent track for our sub-regional partners. And so what are the greatest needs at the county forum level? Having a call for projects that also allows submittals from our forums for projects that are ideally not on the interstate, unless they are new interchange or changes to interchanges are a priority for that forum. At the sub-regional forum level, we are using a submittal cap for each of our forums, recognizing where each of our counties sit within our region in terms of their population, employment, and VMT. So taking an average of those three across our region, Denver, as an example, is 25% of our region. If you add up all these, you'll recognize they don't go to 100. We have established a floor of 5 submittals for our smaller agencies. Want to make sure this call for project is worth it for our smaller our smaller county forums, smaller counties, to be able to submit, have projects evaluated, and ultimately be included in the regional transportation plan. These are not promises of projects. So in this case, Douglas County will not be promised 10 projects in the next RTP, but it is what they can submit for evaluation in the call for projects to be evaluated and then potentially included. Looking back last cycle, around half to 3/4 of projects that were submitted by the forums were included in the adopted regional transportation plan, as an example. And then this submittal cap only applies to the two-track county forum sub-regional level. There is not a cap for projects from CDOT, DRCOG, or RTD. So one of the actions we've been taking is making sure with those projects that are in the adopted RTP, who will be the submitter for those. We want to make sure our sub-regional local partners aren't using up one of their slots with a project that CDOT, RTD, or DRCOG might be resubmitting. When it gets to evaluation, we'd like to lean on our adopted 6 priorities that are already established in the Regional Transportation Plan: multimodal mobility, freight, active transportation, safety, air quality, and regional transit. As we've had conversations with the TAC, with our forum partners, we've recognized that there are other priorities that aren't captured by these 6. And so we are also looking to use MetroVision objectives for topics that are missing in the evaluation: resilience, maintenance, preservation, housing, and development. So I want to make sure we're capturing the breadth of the benefits that projects can provide to the region as we're evaluating them. The evaluation is intended to be high-level, qualitative, narrative-based. So I'm going to run through a number of slides just to show you what some of the prompts will be underneath each of these. Starting with MetroVision, the prompt for a project will be, is the project increasing housing and employment in urban centers? We are not expecting a lot of different data points to be provided to staff. Do not need to have a lot of different graphics. Don't need to leverage the data tool unless our project sponsors would like to. So it's intended to be a high-level qualitative understanding of a project that provides staff enough information to be able to score a project along the yes or no or high, medium, low criteria we're providing. So as I cycle through these, you'll see some are high, medium, low, some are yes, no. In this case, a yes is 1 point, no is 0 points, high, medium, low would be 3, 2, 1. So very qualitative, very high level, recognizing that this is a plan that looks out to 2050, almost 30 years. We do not need to get into the nuts and bolts as we might need to with a transportation improvement program call for projects. For each of these, as I run through the slides, you might also be seeing some other prompts that note TPM. We are also embedding our federal performance measures within our criteria where they fit appropriately. So in this case, on your screen, there are 2 that fall under freight that we'll be prompting sponsors to ask about or respond to. And so how might that project be improving travel time reliability for freight trucks? How is it reducing delay in our region at peak hour? So for some of these where there isn't already a statement in MetroVision, we haven't established a statement in the Regional Transportation Plan. We'll also be leaning on our federal performance measures that are part of our planning process. And then last slide on the criteria. So you'll see there's a mix of high, medium, low, yes and no's across these. Some do score the statement. So regional transit, in this example, you can just respond to the larger prompt. How is your project expanding and maintaining rapid transit networks and options in the region? You can also respond to the sub-prompts within that. So some of these do have the initial prompt as well as sub-prompts for our project sponsors. Once we get through our call for projects, DRCOG staff score those projects. We'll be looking to meet at least twice with what we're calling a regional review panel, made up of staff from DRCOG, CDOT, and RTD, and then 1 representative from our county transportation forums. Those are being identified at the forum level, and then we'll meet once the call for projects has closed and DRCOG staff have scored those projects. Like I'd mentioned, they will be evaluated using the 6 priorities and then MetroVision objectives and federal performance measures where necessary at a high level qualitatively. And then the 3C partners will combine that with our draft financial plan projections for financial resources in the region out to 2050 and identify what a draft list of priorities would be to bring before the committees and the board for action. We are hoping to open our call for projects next Monday, run through October 10th. We are still looking at the schedule, trying to wring out a couple of days on the back end to give opportunities for our project sponsors to get through their own processes that we are asking the forums to take. But as of this moment, the call is scheduled to run from August 25th to October 10th. We'll be using FormStack for those of you who have been working through tip set-asides recently. We'll be asking for additional documentation as applicable. If it's on a facility that they may not own, they'll need concurrence from the owning agency or an agency that might be impacted by that project, and then a GIS shapefile just so we can be able to map those for our modeling that we do. In terms of who can apply for our projects, only public sector agencies can submit projects. So municipal, county governments, CDOT, RTD, developers cannot submit projects for inclusion in the regional transportation plan. When it comes to fast tracks, only RTD could be the submitter of those projects, so a local agency can't request projects related to fast tracks through the process. And then for toll projects, similarly, only toll authorities can submit projects on their facilities. We'll be asking some basic information, just as the evaluation criteria is pretty high level. We're only asking for some basic project information that lets us be able to model, capture the project appropriately in the plan, who it's coming from, who the sponsor is, the name, the limits, the brief description, cost of the project. We have to do a year of expenditure analysis. We know a project costs $50 million today. It will not cost $50 million by 2050, so we do have to grow that cost. And then year of completion, so that's how we grow that. When do we think the project will be open or, just open? And so we grow that project cost to that year of implementation. And then the bulk of the form will be just justification, rationale, narrative around the evaluation criteria that I've noted. So wrapping up, we've been before the TAC a number of times on the framework, tweaking it as we've had those conversations. Expect to be before the board tomorrow. Open the call for projects late next week. Run through early October, and then there will be work sessions between the 3 regional partners. The regional review panel will meet after the call for projects has closed, and then we'll be before the TAC, ideally in December, starting an action to set those investment priorities, then going before RTC and the board in January, before we have to pivot to modeling for air quality and GHG requirements that we have here as an agency. So we want to make sure that those priorities are adopted, affirmed, established, appropriately captured before we get into that modeling. That concludes my presentation, Chair.
Thank you, Alvin. Any questions for Alvin on this presentation? Yes, Ellie Cook.
Can you hear me? Alvin, is there anything interesting on a general level that you've seen in terms of the submittals? Are they different from the past or the same as the past or what you'd expect?
We haven't started the official submittal collection process yet, but our forums have started conversations about what they might like to see included in the regional transportation plan. So those are still early. We are still encouraging as much as possible to have a diverse mix of project types in the plan. Part of the conversations we've been having with RTD, CDOT staff, local government staff is just confirming who might be a resubmitter for some of those projects. And so that might open up submittal slots for forums to broaden their project types and projects that are coming from the forum level.
I was thinking you'd said that they'd already submitted. So that's what I was referring to. Sorry about that.
No, apologies for that. We are looking at carrying forward some projects automatically, so we have started some initial conversations on those. Is it still an appropriate scope, cost, description? If not, we might ask for that to be resubmitted during the upcoming call.
Executive Director Rex.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alvin, thank you, sir, very much. My question is, so, I mean, the process that we're talking about here is very similar to last time. Is there anything different from the last?
We're leaning more on the adopted 6 RTP priorities that we now have established. We leaned on them for our amendment cycle 2 years ago as our evaluation criteria. Because this is a major update, though, we did want to, based on feedback from TAC and forums, broaden the 6 priorities. So while we are still leaning on those, we are falling on MetroVision again where needed.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much for your presentation, Alvin. And thank you. I want to say this is Commissioner Baker. I'm the chair, and I was late. I apologize, but I guess we had a couple of accidents on my way in this morning, not involving me. So thank you to Mayor Whitlow for filling in for me. We now have a quorum. I wanted to mention that we do have Heather Paddock from CDOT online, and we also have Director Carmelia from Westminster online as well. So we're going to go back up to the action items, and we're going to tackle number 4. This is the 2026 to 2027 Unified Planning Work Program, and we're going to have a presentation this morning from Josh Schwenk, Senior Planner. Good morning, Mr. Schwenk.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone.
Sorry, just 1 minute. Sorry, Josh. I did want to recognize that Elise Jones is also online. Okay, and I think she has her hand raised, so, Elise, if you can unmute, go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here back at my first RTC in a meeting in a long time. And sorry I couldn't be there in person this morning. Got back from vacation at midnight last night. But just want to let you know I'm here and listening.
Great, thank you, and welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, continue, please, Mr. Schwenk.
All right, thank you, Chair. So, for those who may have forgotten or who may be new, just wanted to do a quick overview of what the Unified Planning Work Program is. This is the work program for DRCOG in our role as the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Denver region. So it covers all of the transportation planning activities, which we will accomplish over the next 2-year period. So why do we create this document? Well, most importantly, because it is required. As the federally designated MPO for the region, we have to share with our federal partners how we intend to spend the federal planning funds, which they distribute to our region to accomplish our MPO tasks. But it's also important for transparency, so we want to share with all of you as well as with the general public what we do as an agency, what we'll be working on over the next 2 years, as well as coordination, so making sure we're lining up our efforts with CDOT, with RTD, and with all of our local agencies to make sure we are all on the same page. So to develop this document, first we looked at federal direction, so a lot of our requirements are established in laws and regulations, as well as guidance from FTA and FHWA. We also have 10 planning factors, which are established in laws, which UPWPs must address. We also looked at any comments from our most recent quadrennial federal certification. When FHWA and FTA review our MPO activities, they can let us know areas for growth. So we referenced those. We also looked at state direction. So there's been some recent new legislation impacting what MPOs and planning councils in the state must address, as well as coordinating with CDOT and other state agencies, and then local direction. So we reached out to each of our committees, staff, as well as our partner agencies to gather priorities of what's important for our region to address. So just wanted to give a quick overview of the funding. So UPWP activities are funded through what's called the Consolidated Planning Grant. This is federal planning funds from both FHWA and FTA. Essentially, our funding levels are looking relatively the same as what we've encountered in previous years. However, one thing we did want to point out, we do have a new state requirement. They placed a cap on the amount of funds that are able to roll over from year to year. So we do have a lower carryover balance than we have seen in previous years, as we've been trying to burn through that carryover balance to be under that cap over the past couple years. So some impacts we do expect, just because that carryover balance is a little bit lower than we've had in the past. We do expect a little bit less funding available. But we don't expect any major impacts to staff capacity or anything like that. We might be relying a little bit less on taking out contracts to consultants and trying to manage things in-house. But we have been staffing up over the past few years as well, so we really do have that in-house capacity to be able to take on that work. We're also exploring possibly incorporating some other funding sources in the future. So as you all are probably aware, several of our newer TIP set-asides are sort of DRCOG-led planning activities. We're looking at sort of continuing that model moving into the future. So just kind of the steps of developing this document. So I'll run through kind of our feedback over the next couple slides, but we did want to gather that feedback from all of you, from our other committees, and from staff. Based on that feedback, we did an initial review of the tasks that were already in the existing document, as well as some new ideas to incorporate into the document. We reviewed all of those potential changes to the document based on readiness. So is that something we're really ready to move forward with at this time? Is some more exploration needed? How well does it align with those priorities that we heard from all of you, as well as are we able to actually accomplish this given our current staff and funding levels? Those that sort of made it through that screening process were then incorporated into the draft documents. We took that document out for public comment as well as review by our federal and state oversight agencies, and then we have that final draft available for your review here today. So going back to that feedback that we initially heard, we tried to summarize all of those based on sort of some common themes, and you can see kind of a word cloud of what some of those themes were that we heard. Sort of 5 key priorities really emerged from those exercises. So we really heard some interest in looking at air quality, reducing emissions and climate impacts, really addressing housing and land use. Safety, I think, is a pretty consistent theme that we hear as a concern. So really looking into safety for all users of our transportation system. Boosting transit in our region, and then some kind of anxiety around changing funding and kind of that instability that we've seen with funding at really all levels of government recently. So I wanted to run through some of the key tasks included in the document that address each of those kind of key priority areas. This is not everything in the document. You do have the full 60-some-odd page document available in your packet, but these are some of those key continuing and new activities which address each of these themes. So on air quality and resilience, we are looking to finalize the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan within the scope of this UPWP. So this is actually through our CPRG, our Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, but it is obviously tied in with a lot of that planning activity which we accomplish. We're also looking at an update to our Regional Transportation Plan within the upcoming RTP, as you just heard Alvin lay out before me. So included within that RTP update, there will of course be the regular air quality conformity analysis. We also do an environmental analysis looking at kind of more of the resiliency aspect, and then of course the statewide greenhouse gas analysis is also part of that update. And then we have all of our continued planning activities around active transportation, transportation demand management, complete streets, transit, these things which can improve air quality for our region. For housing and land use, so I'm sure you all have heard of our regional housing strategy that is anticipated to be completed within the scope of this next UPWP. So we will have that as a resource for the region. We're also looking to update the MetroVision plan and incorporate more in that land use and housing aspect within the updated plan. For safety, a new task is to update the existing high injury network, bringing in new safety data, making sure that is as up to date as possible, as well as looking at the regional crash profile. So are those still up to date given the changes in transportation we've seen within our region, especially since the pandemic, making sure this still reflects the most accurate safety information. We are also currently developing a Vision Zero operational toolkit, some changes for kind of quick build safety improvements that can be made. We do expect that toolkit to be completed within this next UPWP. We're also looking at some white papers on crash reporting, so really an outcome from our Crash Data Consortium. How can we sort of implement the outcomes from all of that work in improved crash reporting? And then a new state-required activity to really look at gaps in our active transportation network and prioritize completing some of those. For transit, ongoing work coordinating with the Bus Rapid Transit partnership. We also have our Trip Exchange Hub Ride Alliance, which we are bringing within sort of the umbrella of the UPWP. Before that was a separate kind of grant-funded activity. but we did want to make sure that that was included within this document moving forward. We also are looking at exploring coordination region-wide on microtransit. We've really seen a lot of separate microtransit systems popping up around the region. Is there a role for us to play, possibly for RTD to play in really coordinating those to make sure that they are all working together for users in our. And then on the funding side, we wanted to explore what a cost of service analysis might look like. So as we all know, different types of development, different types of infrastructure have different costs associated with implementing and maintaining those. So we really wanted to see if we had a role to play in sort of creating resources for local governments to consider when implementing those. And then our ongoing funding programs through our TIP and our various set-asides, which we really haven't seen significant funding changes. Obviously, there have been some cuts in recent years, but we've also, through some of the changes, such as bringing those new set-asides kind of in-house, we can remove some of that administrative burden as well as match requirements on our local governments. So hopefully that can have some improvements for funding for locals as well. So happy to take any questions folks might have on the draft document about anything you've heard here today. Otherwise, I do have a proposed motion for your consideration.
Questions? Yes, Director Mulvey? I'm sorry, Maurer. I did see. Director Maurer, then Director Mulvey.
Thank you. You don't have to get back to me now if there's indeed a mistake, but when I'm looking at the table 7 that looks at, the dollar amounts for things, and I'm just curious, I'm looking at the active transportation planning. That number doesn't seem to correlate correctly. That's the same number as the total of the whole multimodal planning. I was just looking to see what that actual cost of the active transportation planning is.
I don't have it in front of me right now. I do apologize. If anyone else is able to look at that, but otherwise I can definitely look into that and get back with you. I apologize for that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Director Mulvey.
I'm wondering if it, in the transit part of it, does it include front range passenger rail?
So we do not have activities specifically associated with front range passenger rail in the UPWP, as that's primarily being led by the district, as you're well aware. But we will definitely coordinate on those activities. I also just covered primarily the DRCOG-led activities within this presentation. I do also want to just state there are several activities within the document that are primarily RTD-led. So those are also included within the document. So we obviously will continue to coordinate with the Front Range District as well as with RTD, but within sort of the scope of our planning work, we don't have that specifically listed within this document.
Thank you. As it develops, would it be advisable at any level to include mention of the development of joint service from Denver to Fort Collins, since that looks like it's going to be getting off the ground?
Absolutely. And Jacob would like to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Let me help you out with this one. Yeah, Director Mulvey and everyone. So Josh's first response is absolutely correct. Let me add to it and shorten it a little bit. Yes, we have, as you know, a legacy of staff involvement in front range passenger rail activities. That is going to continue in this new UPWP. Josh is correct. We don't call it out as a distinct activity, but it's part of the planning work and part of the transit work that we do, and that will continue. To answer your second question regarding joint service agreement, under Senate Bill 238, there is a requirement that the Front Range Passenger Rail District Board provide an annual briefing to DRCOG. I've been working with Front Range Rail staff to get that scheduled. It's going to occur later this fall. That briefing will actually be a joint briefing with the annual Front Range Rail update, as well as the joint service agreement activities. So that's coming.
And we have Director Carmelia online, and then we'll go to Director Banker after that. Director Carmelia?
Thanks so much. I just wanted to comment on, I love that we are including possible collaboration on the micro level for micro transit. This has been on my mind, and I've been wondering where and how to bring this up, towards DRCOG for our planning purposes. So thank you for getting that on the board. And then I did have a question for the last presentation that I'm just going to throw out into the air in case anyone knows, but I think that as I wasn't a panelist, you couldn't see my hand. Which is just the question around the dollars for those projects that are being submitted. What kind of dollar range are we talking, or how many dollars are available ultimately in the pot? And how much consideration is being given for projects of a certain dollar amount?
Jacob?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Baker. Director, so presuming that you're referring to the candidate project solicitation for the 2050 RTP, we don't have a set dollar amount. What we're really looking for is those major multimodal project and investment priorities. And so planning is an art and a science. And in this case, if the transportation forums or if a project sponsor says that, this is a really important project, let's say it's an active transportation project, whether it's 5 million or 10 million or whatever the dollar amount is, it's more about identifying those major strategic multimodal priorities. We don't have a minimum or maximum dollar amount for these candidate project solicitations. Having said that, when we get to the point of, working through all the projects and everything it takes to put the fiscally constrained plan together, yes, we're going to be looking at these conceptual project costs, matching them up with anticipated revenues and getting to a cost feasible or fiscally constrained plan. But at this stage, we're not looking at project amounts in terms of the solicitation project cost amounts.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Director Banker.
Thank you. My first question actually is when you're talking about 2026, 27, you're talking about calendar years, not state fiscal year, not federal fiscal year, but a local government fiscal year.
It is actually federal fiscal year.
Federal fiscal year.
Because these are federal funds, the document operates on the federal fiscal year. Thank you for pointing that out, yes.
So then this is only one fiscal year, it's not two. You're
It covers
talking about FY 26, 27.
Federal fiscal year 2026 and federal fiscal year 2027. So each federal fiscal year runs from October 1st to September 30th.
I understand that. Yes.
So this would begin October 1st, 2025, and go until September 30th, 2027.
Okay, so it is 2 years. Okay, and then to sort of tag on to all the questions about financing, at what point then would you be coming up with your estimates for how much you're going to be getting in federal funds, both transit and highway, long bill appropriations for CDOT, and then how are you including some of the new revenue sources that the state is giving transit, Senate Bill 230, Senate Bill 184?
Jacob?
Thank you for that excellent question. So I want to make a distinction between our work program, our staff work program, which is funded through what we call consolidated planning grant dollars from the federal government, which is planning funds from the Federal Highway Administration and transit formula funds from the Federal Transit Administration. That's what's powering this work that Josh is talking about in our work program. All the other funding sources that you mentioned, the state legislation and some of those other things, are things that we factor into the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan when we bring together all the revenues, federal, state, local, and otherwise, and come up with that fiscally constrained plan. So that's where those show up. These are just planning dollars for the staff to do the work.
And when you're putting together your projects, clearly you have to identify the revenue sources that it's coming from. So at what point then in the process are you saying that you're going to start plugging in those dollars and making assumptions as to how much, especially on the federal side, would be coming down for both highways and transit?
For our work program?
Yes.
Yeah, so we work pretty continuously and cooperatively with both CDOT, Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration. They publish sort of estimates of funding, and those get amended over time. And so we kind of have this rolling kind of understanding of our budget and what those projections are going to look like for actually the next 5 fiscal years, Josh, or at least the next several fiscal years that we use for planning in terms of our staff capacity and our work capacity in our unified planning work program.
We'll just add on, so after annual appropriations, we do receive those new numbers from CDOT, and we will come back and amend the document with those new numbers. So I believe we have the set 2026 funds right now, and then an estimate for 2027. We will come back with an amendment once those 2027 funds are set in stone, and then we'll amend the document and amend our contract with CDOT to include those final numbers.
Other questions? Director Guzman.
Just a real quick comment, actually. With respect to BRT in the DRCOG region where we overlay with RTD, you've got to include RTD. That's not an if, it's a must. We know how our buses turn and the radius that we need, specific designations for ADA access, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you're doing bus rapid transit planning of any kind, RTD needs to be at that table to be able to help with the planning process from an expertise point of view, but also because there may be some other issues that we have to deal with. So I would just remove the if and any possibility of us not being there and replace it with we have to be at that table. Thank you.
Jacob?
Yeah, thank you, Director Guzman. Appreciate your comments. Agree wholeheartedly, and to reassure you, RTD staff and RTDs and agencies at the table of all of our BRT planning work. RTD is a founding member of the Regional BRT Partnership that I've been stewarding the past 2 years, and every single BRT project, whether we're leading it or CDOT or another entity, RTD has been actively at the table. And in fact, I want to give a particular shout out to RTD staff. They've just been real partners with us in terms of being able to do this work over the last several years. So you were at the table, you will continue to be at the table, and we couldn't do it without you.
Any other questions? Yes, Director Rex, Executive Director Rex.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. I just wanted to get back and give a response to Director Maurer slash. No, I just talked to Todd in the back of the room. He was reading through. We think it's a formula issue on that. I've got to get you to look at my home budget. If you can catch that, my word, I don't believe half the stuff Emily tells me. But anyway, so we'll look at that this afternoon, and if there is the formula change, we will bring that. So if the committee would give us a little bit of flexibility on that, we'll bring in a separate sheet tomorrow if there's an issue. Thank you.
Great. Any last questions? If not, the chair would entertain a motion as presented up on the screen. Executive Director, CEO Johnson.
Deborah Johnson, General Manager, CEO. So moved.
And we have a second from Shelley Cook. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item number 5. This is Public Engagement Plan Update, and we're going to have a presentation from Carolyn Clam, planner with DRCOG.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Good morning, Carolyn.
All right, yeah, as introduced, I will be talking about our newest update to our public engagement plan. So just real quickly, I'd like to go over what is included in our public engagement plan, why we do it, and that sort of thing. So I sort of think of this as our public engagement plan as 2 primary purposes, one for the public and one for DRCOG staff. So in terms of what the document is for the public, it helps inform people of DRCOG's public engagement philosophy, what we believe when it comes to public engagement, what the foundation is for our work and that sort of thing. It also informs people of the best ways to get involved, what kinds of processes typically include public engagement, how DRCOG staff will be incorporating public engagement in our plans. It also includes information on DRCOG's policy process. So if somebody was interested in learning more about how they could get involved, they would have that outlined for them. Additionally, it is also a reference document for staff, which outlines DRCOG policies. So if you were a new staff member and wanted to know what DRCOG's policy is on certain public engagement strategies, you would be able to find it in the document. It also outlines legal requirements for our plans. So if you were a new project manager for a plan and wanted to know the basics of the legal requirements, you would be able to find that information. It also includes strategies and tips for success, ways to brainstorm improving public engagement strategies, how to start to think about doing public engagement, and that sort of thing. So why has DRCOG been updating the plan? There are several reasons. The first is that it was last adopted in 2019 and amended in 2021. So a lot has changed in the public engagement sphere since then, namely new virtual public engagement strategies with the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the fact that 2019 was quite a while ago and new best practices continue to emerge we want to stay on top of. DRCOG also has new plans and programs that have helped to pilot innovative public engagement strategies that we wanted to try to capture and discuss more of the lessons learned from all of those new engagement programs. Additionally, the update itself is in the Unified Planning Work Program, so it was part of our work in order to update it this year. And finally, DRCOG staff is always striving to make DRCOG's engagement better. So it's a good opportunity to do some more research, learn from peers, and that sort of thing. So in terms of how we performed this update, we went through a couple of steps here. So first, we assessed best practices from peer organizations, learning what kinds of engagement strategies others were implementing, learning how other agencies put together their public engagement plan to be most useful, and that sort of thing. Then we took that information and drafted some updates and spent a lot of time with internal staff workshops to work with our staff in order to determine what they use the public engagement plan for already, what they wish they could use the public engagement plan for, what would make it more useful and an effective document. So you can see the organization, some various divisions listed here. The plan update was led by communications and marketing and transportation planning and operations, but we had those stakeholder workshops with our other divisions at our agency. So I'd just like to spend a little bit of time going over some highlights of our plan update for you. This is not comprehensive, but just wanted to point out a few things. So one of the items we included was steps for public engagement. This was revamped from the existing public engagement plan. We gave the graphics a little bit of a lift up to new accessibility standards, as well as adding some little tip for success highlight boxes. This is consistent throughout the plan, just little things that we wanted to make sure could grab staff's attention as they were reading through the document. So this is just one page where we describe a step for public engagement and then a list of prompts, how you should think about that step, what sort of things are involved, and that sort of thing. We also included a whole chapter on public engagement techniques and metrics. This was primarily used as I'd say like a brainstorming place where staff could go, where they could take a look at what level of public engagement they were interested in and find a list of potential techniques along with metrics of how you could measure the effectiveness of that public engagement strategy. As you can see as well, we continue to implement those tip for success call-out boxes for staff. We also included information by topic. The original our last public engagement plan was pretty heavy on transportation planning, but DRCOG does all sorts of things. So we wanted to try to highlight the work of other divisions as well. So this is the page on regional planning in the region and what sort of public engagement strategies go along with that. Finally, one of the things I would like to point out is we had an appendix specifically for additional resources. So we had a lot of staff in the workshop share resources that were really helpful for public engagement, but didn't necessarily completely fit in the narrative part of the plan. So we included an appendix for additional data sources, research, best practices, that sort of thing for any staff that wanted to take their engagement further. There was like a bucket for all of those pieces to live. So that was this appendix. We did have the plan out for public comment, and we did make a few edits accordingly. So we included more emphasis on how to work with community leaders to find participants. We added additional strategies for reaching a specific target community, and we added a list of how to use specifically how to use community data once you receive it in a project. In terms of timeline, what steps led us here, the plan has taken about a year in total to get from start of update to now. So you can see that here we have the scoping, outreach, document development, and then the public review period. So I'm happy to take any questions, but I do have a proposed motion up for you.
Questions, Director Guzman?
I would assume because it's public engagement that there is a section that is dealing with translation interpretation for the safety languages, but I don't see that presented here. What's the update there?
Yeah, so throughout the plan, we do discuss when a translation might be appropriate, and we reference DRCOG's internal translation policy for any particular public engagement that may require that translation. So it's not a specific section, but we reference it throughout the plan.
Thank you.
Other questions? Director Carmela.
Yes. Where all would this engagement plan be shared? Because something I've been trying to work on is the increased knowledge of DRCOG itself and what it is. And so it seems to me this engagement plan might only be useful for folks who already know what it is to see a new engagement plan. But how are we educating the public on, getting this information out on how they can engage with DRCOG and what DRCOG is and getting new folks involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as we've developed the plan, we've promoted it on social media. We've promoted it through e-blasts. We have it as part of our DRCOG engagement social pinpoint site. And then when it's finalized, we can announce that in those similar locations, as well as publicly posting it on our webpage.
Thank you.
Jacob?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Baker. Just to add to Carolyn's excellent answer, the way the public engagement plan is structured is a little bit of a toolkit approach, and while there are obviously a lot of DRCOG specific references in terms of our processes and our staff and our resources, the toolkit approach structure of the plan itself actually really lends itself to being used by anyone for any sort of public engagement effort, because there's just some, sort of very dynamic advice in there about if you're trying to do X, here's the method you would use, or if you're trying to get to Z, like how would you do that? And so there's some universal application there beyond just DRCOG.
Other questions? Seeing none, the chair would take a motion as presented on the screen. Director Guzman.
I'll move to recommend to the Board of Directors the adoption of the 2025 Public Engagement Plan.
Second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item number 6. This is attachment D in your packet. This is corridor sets aside selection. We're going to hear from Nora Kern. Oh, Jacob? Okay. All right, we have by the way, let me just go ahead at this time and offer congratulations to Jacob, who is now the new Division Director for Transportation Planning and Operations. So congratulations, Jacob.
Good morning. Okay. Thank you, Chair Baker. That's very kind. I really appreciate that. just here to do the work, but really thrilled and excited and look forward to working with all of you in this new role. I couldn't be more pleased and look forward to what we can accomplish together, starting with our corridor planning set-aside selection. Yes, I'm doing this for Nora Kern today. She's just about to go on maternity leave, so picking this one up for her, but it really represents her great work and her team's great work. I just have the honor of presenting it. So a little bit of background for those who may not remember, maybe new, in terms of our corridor planning program. This is a new program that we started a couple of years ago here at DRCOG, and it's really ultimately to advance those projects identified in the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. As you all know, we have a longstanding legacy as the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, of participating in local government-led studies, CDOT studies, RTD studies, NEPA studies, planning and environmental linkage studies. We have done that. We will continue to do that. But we wanted to be even more intentional about taking a leading role in implementing some of the major corridor-based, project investment priorities in our regional transportation plan. And so we started this new program where we actually lead the projects in cooperation with a project sponsor to carry some of these projects forward and get them towards implementation in the plan. To do that, we're looking at several kinds of corridors that are designated, projects and corridors that are designated in our 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. These include bus rapid transit projects that we've already mentioned a little bit, corridor transit projects, which is other types of transit investments that we've specifically identified within the plan. Arterial safety and regional vision zero projects is another major category of projects that lend themselves to this corridor planning program, as well as a lot of the corridors themselves, the roadway investment projects in the plan that we call multimodal corridor projects, again, also really lend themselves well towards the corridor planning program. So we started this as a pilot program, as I said, a couple years ago, and then have institutionalized this within our current 24 to 27 transportation improvement program. It is one of our TIP set-asides. We have $3 million dedicated towards this set-aside over the 4 years of the TIP, which means in each 2-year funding cycle, we have $1.5 million. So we've been through one funding cycle already. So this is the second of the 2 funding cycles within our 4-year TIP, for which we're coming to you today for project funding selection. For this set-aside, we did a calls for letter of interest back this spring and early summer. We had some requirements around those letters of interest and what we were looking for these corridor planning program projects. We wanted the letters to be submitted by a local jurisdiction or a regional agency. We wanted to know that the public sector would be behind, the project that's being proposed and submitted. Obviously, the projects must be identified specifically in the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. As I said, that's the point, to carry those projects forward to implementation. We're really looking at kind of those arterial type projects, so limited access roadways, trails, projects that have advanced to pre-construction or construction were not the types of projects we were looking for. We were looking for projects primarily on our arterial roadways, whether they were state highways or not, but those arterial roadway projects that needed some help to get going into the next phase of planning and project development. So in terms of selection, those letters of interest were evaluated by a selection panel that included DRCOG, CDOT, and RTD staff. And then obviously we're bringing it through our committee process. Our Transportation Advisory Committee approved it last month, and then we're looking for your approval today and our Board of Directors tomorrow. So in terms of our criteria of how we evaluated these letters of interest, there were several criteria. These are identified actually and encapsulated or contained within our TIP policy document. We're looking for alignment with our overall Metro Vision Plan. We're looking for alignment with the RTP priorities that Alvin talked about earlier. We're looking to benefit to marginalized communities to a certain extent. We want to know that these projects and these investments will help those communities. We want projects of regional impact. So we want, these projects, this investment to really make a difference for our region. We're looking a little bit at project readiness. Is this project ready to move forward into a planning and eventually a project development process? And then obviously planning need. What's the need for the project? What's the need that we can address through this program? So we received 5 letters of interest These were all really sort of competitive projects. They were all very different. They were very interesting geographically across our region. Our selection panel met to really work through these. It took some discussion and really working together because we had a little bit of embarrassment of riches to choose from in terms of some good projects to fund with this program. We are recommending this funding, this project, the Spear, Leetsdale, Parker corridor study, and I want to come back here and sort of talk about that a little bit. With these 5 projects and with $1.5 million available, we wanted to be really thoughtful about this selection. So yes, we are recommending the one project that is $1.5 million. It's a very long corridor. The Spear, Leetsdale, Parker road corridor goes all the way from downtown Denver. I think it touches Glendale, Aurora, Arapahoe County. All of those partners are invested and interested in this project. It's a major regional diagonal corridor. It's an important corridor from just a regional roadway connectivity perspective. From a regional BRT perspective, it's one of the BRT corridors identified in the regional transportation plan. So not a decision that we made lightly, but given the importance of the corridor, the partners involved, the importance of the project, this is where we ended up as a selection panel that I also served on to make this project funding recommendation for the Spear, Leetsdale, Parker for the corridor planning program for fiscal years 2026 and 2027. And this is the motion before you today that we're asking for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jacob. I just am amazed. I want to make sure everybody knows that this project was not selected because that was my route here today, that I was late. So that's exactly how I came. So thank you. I had a question real quick. Marginalized communities, are you using the census data, the census blocks to determine marginalized communities?
In a sense, we're actually using the DRCOG Equity Index that we spent a couple of years developing, which does include that and a lot of other information. We asked the letters of interest, the project sponsors, to just sort of use that equity index and kind of show us how it compares in the index to the region as a whole. So yes, in a sense, we are.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Director Whitlow and then Director Cook.
Thanks very much, Jacob. I just want to make a comment. This is the first time I went through a letter of interest going through the county. And Nora and her staff were amazing to go through this. I do just kudos to Nora and her staff and Doug. It was just an interesting way of going through something that I've never gone through before. But the process is tight and it's good. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that and Doug knows that.
Yeah, thank you, Director. I'm lucky to have her and her staff. No question.
Kelly?
Yeah, thank you. And Jacob, thanks for going into a bit more of your thinking about the selection of the one project, because my initial thought, and it's an unfair one because I don't know the submittals in detail, but was some regret that, only one was getting funded where it looked like there would be considerable impact if more than one of those other entries could have been funded. So thanks. I support what you're doing, and I realize the importance of that.
Yeah, thank you. And it's an important point. It's something that we talk through too. Geographic equity, project impact, regional importance. Yeah, we really had to work through that.
And we'll just point out that doesn't mean these projects go away. These projects will be on, they could be on the sub-regional lists, and they could be coming up. We may see them again. We probably will see them again. So, other questions? Director Maurer.
Yeah, I see the importance of looking at this corridor, and I look at this as a story, and I'm just waiting for it to unfold and how you're going to how the study's going to come up with some ideas to address the congestion and all the problems they have.
Thank you, Director Maurer. Any other questions? All right, the chair would entertain a motion as presented on the screen. Thank you, Director Silverstein. We have a motion. Is there a second? Director Maurer, thank you. Appreciate it. Any further discussion at this time? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. We got through our action items this morning. We've already tackled item number 7, which is a discussion item. So we're going to go on to item number 8. This is attachment F in your packet, and we're going to hear from Senior Planner Aaron Villery.
Hey, thank you, Chair, and good job on the pronunciation. I appreciate it. So my name's Aaron Villery. I'm the Senior Active Transportation Planner in TPO, and I'm here. I believe Jacob made this announcement last month, but I wanted to give you all an update about an exciting milestone that we're at, which is we're in our public draft period for the Regional Active Transportation Plan. And so just wanted to share a little bit of information and then enlist you all to help get the word out and make sure that we get lots of robust public feedback. So the Active Transportation Plan was last adopted in 2019, and so for the last year or more, we've been completing a major update to the Regional Active Transportation Plan. This, of course, fits within our larger planning framework. It reflects the themes of Metro Vision. It supports and aligns with our Regional Transportation Plan, as well as it interlocks with some of our other adopted planning documents, such as the Taking Action on Regional Zero Plan, the Regional Complete Streets Toolkit, and, of course, other publications that DRCOG has issued. And which is to say that it fits in within this larger framework of our strategic goals in the region, but it really focuses on how do we promote and unlock walking, bicycling, micromobility, all sorts of human-powered active modes throughout the region. So just to give you a little bit of background on the process, we kicked this off last summer, and we've been working hard on it for about 15 months now, if my count is right. And we're really aiming for fall 2025 adoption. But right now we are in our public comment period, which started on August 1st. But really you can sort of see the steps that we've been going through on this slide that we kicked off developing plan themes and goals. We've been developing deliverables throughout the process. We've been developing some supplementary documents that I'll talk a little bit about. And now we're really in the process of trying to collect as much feedback as we can and get the word out about the plan so we can make it the strongest document possible when we bring it for adoption. I just want to talk a little bit about what's in the plan and give you a brief overview about, we really see this as a document that guides DRCOG's work, but also can be a strong framework or scaffold to support local planning work. So the sort of general outline, if I can summarize this very quickly, it starts with what we call making the case for active transportation. So really just trying to provide some pull-apart resources about why active transportation is important to the region, what is the problem that we're trying to solve with this, why do we need this plan, and to give you all some resources when you're talking about walking, bicycling. How does this fit into the regional transportation puzzle? And then it has two major elements. The universal access to walking chapter is really the walking element. How do we promote an accessible and safe and comfortable pedestrian network throughout the region? And then the second part is the bicycle element, a complete connected bicycling network. And we are using the term bicycle plus. You'll see that a lot throughout the plan, which is really meant to encompass one of the major pieces of feedback we heard early in this process is there are all these new micromobility modes that are, really in the last 5 years have really started to expand rapidly. Scooters, cargo bikes, e-bikes, one wheels, some different types of things that are really changing the way that people. And so we want to envision a bicycling network that is comfortable, it is connected, it is safe, and it's inviting for people. And then finally, the last chapter of the plan is for policy and program actions, and this is really where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. These are sort of what's the next set of steps for the DRCOG staff to put this plan into. And so I'll give you a quick overview, but really the crux of the plan is the Regional Active Transportation Network. And similar to the 2019 plan, we retained sort of this we call it the three-legged stool which is we have a three-part transportation network. The most direct way that this is applied is, of course, through our TIP program. We use this to inform funding and programming decisions. But it also, I'll talk a little bit about how it's applied as well and how it was developed. How do you apply the regional network? Many of your jurisdictions or agencies might have your own local planning efforts around walking and bicycling, but this really provides sort of a regional framework. So there's the three parts of it are the pedestrian focus areas. These are sort of district-based or small area-based geographies, and these were developed using a set of destination and demographic and land use factors. So things like, is the population in an area either especially concentrated with older adults or children or people with disabilities or households with no car access, things like that that might express perhaps latent demand for walking. We also use things like RTD system optimization plan to appropriately weight for planned frequency and investments in transit throughout the region. We use things like our regional Vision Zero high injury network and pedestrian crash concentration. We use things like our urban centers and employment, and so all these things that might express that there is a demand for walking access that is concentrated within an area that might not be accommodated at the current moment. That investments in pedestrian infrastructure could unlock more walking. Second leg of the stool is the short trip opportunity zones. These are really built on our focused travel model for the region. And these are places where we see the highest concentration of trips that are 2 miles or less. And we're sort of using 2 miles as that is a 10-minute or less bike ride. That is where using an active mode is going to be as competitive as driving or as using any other mode of transportation. And so this is where we think there's a lot of opportunity to shift trips to active transportation. Improve congestion and mobility and access by focusing on targeted investments. And so the short trip opportunity zones are, again, a district-based, a small area-based part of the network. There are some places where it overlaps with pedestrian focus areas, but there are some places that it is also different parts of the network. And of course, the regional active transportation corridors. One of the things we really focused on with this iteration of the plan was to make consistent or sort of regularize, the grid spacing of the regional network. So these are linear corridors. These are major routes that connect the small areas. These are trails or north-south, east-west spines. Places where you want to see a higher level of comfort, perhaps, for people walking and bicycling. And so we want to try to drive investment and both in building new infrastructure, but also potentially improving capacity or comfort on some of these existing too. And so those are meant to be more consistent by land use. So we really focused on what is a consistent grid spacing to have access to one of these regional corridors by urban context. So if you're in an urban versus a more suburban versus a more area, what is a predictable frequency at which you might have access to these corridors. And this is really meant to expand access throughout the region so that people living and working here have predictable proximity to these. And finally, the sort of unsung leg of the stool is local networks. And so I wanted to show this slide that shows how, in a zoomed in area of the region, we're looking at sort of the Denver, Lakewood, Edgewater, Wheat Ridge interface. One of the key tools for this plan, we hope, is promoting interjurisdictional coordination, sort of promoting those tie-ins between where those boundaries meet so that, Lakewood was updating their plan this last year, Denver was updating their plan this last year, making sure that those planning efforts are aligned and so that people don't know it necessarily when they cross a town boundary, and so we want these consistent and well connected. So we are not superseding local planning, but we're attempting to sort of stitch it together and provide a framework for jurisdictions to collaborate with one another. We're also really excited. Two of the documents that are also available for public review and comment right now are these plan supplements. These aren't intended to be adopted. They're intended to be living documents, for lack of a better term, but we really wanted to address some of the emerging issues that we've heard from this committee, from our board, from our TAC, from different, different engagement and stakeholder conversations we've had. We wanted to address some of these acute issues and develop two supplementary resources. The first one is the Sidewalk Delivery Guide, which is one of the conversations I'm sure you all have been engaged in, is just the challenge of completing an accessible and ADA compliant sidewalk network across the region, that there are major gaps. There are some really significant barriers to completing that, rising costs, challenges around labor, just some specific design issues. We have a new accessibility guide, the public accessibility guide that was adopted in, I believe, finally, was when the rule. So we want to provide this guide to help people accelerate completion of local sidewalk network. And so that has some resources on everything from design to project delivery, some national and regional case studies to try to help improve that process. And then building a Better Bicycle Plus program. And this is really meant to address some of the emerging issues around micromobility. So there are all these new vehicles, new interactions and new conflicts that come about with introducing scooters and shared micromobility and e-bikes onto the regional trail and on street. So we wanted to provide some guidance to kind of fill in some of the national guidance gaps, try to address some of these emerging challenges and trends. So that has everything from a little bit of design and project evaluation guidance to, again, program guidance. So these are two things that we're really excited about, that we're offering and want to keep developing, as the practice evolves, keep developing resources that people can be on the cutting edge of delivering complete Bicycle Plus systems. So the exciting ask to you all is that we are 2 weeks into a month-long public draft review period. So the public draft is going to be open through September 1st. That is Labor Day. That's a Monday. But we are asking your help getting the word out and providing your comments. It is posted right now. The web portal is engage.drcog.org/ATP, Active Transportation Plan. And we're holding a series of stakeholder meetings this month. We've got one tomorrow. We had one last week. We are conducting targeted conversations with folks, but really we're just focusing on getting the word out. And so for you to share within your networks, to share within your agencies, make sure that promoting this far and wide as we can. And for the next 2 weeks, submit your comments and help us make this a better and I think the last piece of it is I'm also kind of having office hours on a rolling basis throughout the month. So if you want to have individual conversations with me, I'm also, or if anybody to, I'm also more happy to do that, but just want to get the word out. So engage.drcog.org/ATP is the big thing to take away from this. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Questions for Aaron? Right. You must have answered all our questions. Thank you, Aaron. Great presentation. All right. Thank you, everyone. We're moving on to our administrative items. So, for CDOT,
Thank you. We've got 3 new members, still waiting for the 4th, from Denver, from Jessica Holguin's replacement. We've got some interesting presentations this month, one on rail update, including Front Range Passenger Rail, but also the Mountain Rail. And then previewing a TLRC presentation that the leadership will make this week to the legislature. We'll have an update on rural pavement conditions. And we have some really good news. Several years ago, the commission approved a new approach to try to reduce or at least not allow an increase in the percentage of interstate pavement, because if you get above 5%, you risk losing your funding or some of your federal funding. So they've been able to reduce from 3.9% to 2.3%. So we're talking single digits. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do the math, that's a 41% decrease in the numbers of, or the miles of highway that are rated poor. So that was very good news. I'll look forward to that presentation. That's all I have right now.
Thank you. RTD, Executive Director Johnson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll start and then I'll yield the floor to the directors of the RTD board that are in the room this morning. First and foremost, commencing on August 31st, we will implement the last of our tri-annual service change on August 31st. Just for everybody's edification, RTD, like most transit agencies across the country, do 3 service changes a year. They're intentional relative to giving our frontline colleagues an opportunity to bid on their work shifts and also to make adjustments to schedules. And so with that as the backdrop, what's notable for this service change that's taking place on August 31st is that we will be commencing with additional work relative to our downtown rail reconstruction. So adjustments have been made to the schedule relative to minimizing impacts in reference to how we will be operating trains through the throat of Denver Union Station. Most notably, the work that will take place will commence on September 2nd, and it'll be work that's being done at Calumet and Colfax Avenues. We expect that work, as I indicated, to commence on September 2nd and run through the latter part of November. Additionally, there will be work that we plan for 2026, and adjustments will be made with the schedule once we work with our contractor to identify what is permissible and working with our partners at the City and County of Denver. Also, a notable aspect of the service change will be the opening of, or the reopening of Boulder Junction in the city of Boulder, in which the AB2 and the Flatiron Flyer 4 will be operating out of Boulder Junction. And while this is an RTD operated service, there is support from RTD in which the Boulder Hop will be operating out of Boulder Junction as well. Additionally, what I want to note is that we have increased our fare checks on our rail system. When I say rail, I'm talking about light rail and commuter rail by 500% in comparison to what we were doing in May of 2024. This is part of a 4-step plan that we have relative to a welcoming transit environment. Basically, you may have noticed that we have a more high-level presence, a visibility presence within key intermodal transit hubs, also having individuals, i.e. Police personnel or our contracted security personnel board buses. We're increasing patrolling through the expansion of our police department. And what's notable is that back in August of 2024, we trained RTD police officers on fare enforcement, and basically through the utilization of onboard cameras that have live look-in, partnering with municipalities has given an opportunity for us to address issues in real time relative to working with jurisdictional partners. Our entire bus fleet are outfitted with live look-in cameras, and our light rail fleet probably is about 35% as of now. Additionally, what I'd like to touch upon is that related to the same theme of a welcoming transit environment, that we have increased our outreach personnel that are focused on quality of life issues relative to those that are unhoused. We initially had 1, now we've expanded to 4. Still not enough to cover the entire system, but it beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. As we move forward, I'm proud to announce our partnership program. We are in its 3rd year, and we announced just 2 weeks ago, some on-demand microtransit projects. So earlier when we were hearing the presentation relative to microtransit, quite naturally, as Executive Director Rex knows, we just talked about this at our Advanced Mobility Project Steering Committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, whereby RTD is looking to lean in and shepherd that. And this is notable that microtransit, as we do our comprehensive operations analysis, which basically is an in-depth analysis of how we deliver service, looking at key activity centers, a myriad of different elements relative to land use, population growth. Basically, it is more enhanced in the system optimization plan, which was a form of a COA, and it was just branded as such by RTD staff. But with that as a backdrop, the on-demand microtransit projects that were selected are for Commerce City, the town of Erie, City and County of Denver, and Longmont. And additionally, there's funding that we've provided, fixed route service connecting Jefferson County Government Center and the Morris Natural History Museum on weekdays from 9 to 5, with stops at Matthews Winters Park, Red Rocks Trading Post, and downtown Morrison, including others. And then additional project, first last mile micro mobility project for individuals to use Lyman Bird scooters for trips ending at Decatur and Federal Station or the University of Colorado Station. So with that, I will yield the floor to others. Thank you.
Director Guzman.
Since we last met, we also, as a board, approved the union contract because we are people who move people. And for ATU Local 1001, we needed to complete our collective bargaining agreements and approve that at the board level. So that was completed at the end of July. Traditionally, we take off the month of August. That doesn't mean that your committee chairs have been slouching. We've been busy planning for return in September, where we will start tackling fiscal matters and the budget for 2026 through the end of the year. Operational updates, including our service planning policies and on the performance of the agency, looking at key statistics and measures and working on the review process through the end of the year. So there's a lot of work to get done the last few months of this calendar year, and our budget runs on a fiscal year that is a calendar year from January to December. So lots of work there. Really important, please, if you see safety lights ringing or bells sounding at an at-grade crossing with any of our light rail or commuter rail trains, don't tempt fate. You will not win, and it will just destroy public property. Please wait for the trains to pass safely for yourself and for your vehicle. Even at the stops, it's just not safe. If you're not sure, just wait. Make sure that it's clear before you pass. Look both ways and don't assume, never assume a train is not coming. It's just a safety concern that's driving me crazy, and I don't understand why we can't respect it. You don't run a red light on purpose, and the trains sounding and the horns and the arms and all of the things that we put in place to keep people safe, they're there for a reason, so respect them and take that message back to your communities, please, especially if they're visiting our wonderful city of Denver or out in Aurora along any of our major rail lines. We want to make sure people are safe. So we're doing everything we can to keep it that way, but we need cooperation from everybody. Thank you.
That's a great reminder. I, for one, will also take that back to my community and share. Director Banker?
Thank you. Do technically have the month of August off, but my understanding is top officials from Burlington Northern are in town to start negotiations on linking the line, Northwest Rail and Front Range Passenger Rail. Cross our fingers that negotiations go well. Probably not quite as important as Putin and getting together, but it's going to be a challenge up there. It's right up there.
If I may make a point of clarification, actually, with BNSF, we did meet yesterday and had inaugural discussions relative to some key elements, quite naturally, as we look at service characteristics and other elements relative to any type of agreement to use that right away. So that took place yesterday. I just wanted to clarify as we went forward. So, and can't say too much, as you all know, because we're negotiating, but thank you.
Thank you. Director Soroy, do you have anything? No? Okay. Do we have any, no? Oh, excellent. Thank you, Director Silverstein.
Well, thank you. And just a couple items for the group today. We have received appointments for vacancies on the RAC board from the governor's office this week, and just want to announce that I have a continuing supervision from our director Rex on the RAC board. So that's one of my bosses, and then also new board member sitting to my right, Skylar McKinley, from AAA. So Skylar's a new board member, and we'll get him oriented and beginning with the RAC very shortly. And so many of you have had involvement with the RAC or even served on our board or have staff that are on our board in the past. So appreciate everybody's commitment to the RAC. We've had one of our best summertime air quality seasons in a very long time. Looking at the numbers, I think if things hold, we're on track to have our best year in the past 15 years. So we have a month to go until mid-September when things sort of tail off. But, you know, fingers crossed, and good public health or better public health from an air quality perspective this year with pretty much a lack of wildfire smoke impacting our region. We've had some impact, but not high numbers like previous years. We've had what we call a turbulent atmosphere, and so we have you know, conducive temperatures and weather that can help form summertime ozone. But thankfully, we don't see the stagnation and those hot, calm, still days, you know, day after day throughout the summer. So we've had just a great year from a meteorological perspective. And hopefully our emission reduction programs have had you know, continuing benefit as well. So we'll take credit for everything we can in this kind of unknown world we live in air quality planning and management. And then finally, just want to make an announcement that a month from now we'll be hosting what we call our Clean Air Champions Awards ceremony for the year. That's our annual event at RAC where we get together for a little bit of fun and host all of our stakeholders and honor some significant contributions to air quality for the year. And that's going to be on September 16th. Everyone here on this committee is invited as well as their staff. It's a kind of an open invitation to attend our event. This year we'll be at the Denver Performing Arts Complex. So we're moving out of our office patio into some nicer digs, try something new this year. And more detail on our website, raqc.org. If you're interested or your team might be interested in attending with us, open invitation for everybody. So that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'll open it up if there's any announcements from anyone else. Yes, Director.
Well, I feel some obligation to at least mention that a week from tomorrow is our annual award celebration on August 27th. I hope you're registered to attend. If you haven't yet, I'm sure I can still get you a seat. So please just give me a call, send me a text, whatever. We'll get you set up. Thank you.
Thank you. And don't forget, if you parked in the garage downstairs, please see Cam. He's got your get out of jail free card. Anything else? I don't see no hands, so we are adjourned. Thank you.